I appreciate all of you guys tuning in for another episode. In this one, I want to talk about a huge golf myth. Is it really a myth? Welcome back, everybody, to Golf Test Dummy, the channel where I use my game to help your game.
Hopefully.
And I appreciate you guys tuning in for another episode. Lots of people say that this is a myth that is busted. I've seen several coaches talk about this very thing. It's a classic piece of golf instruction that dates back decades. I'm sure all of you have heard it. I know that all of you have had a friend at some point tell you this, or you've had to say it to friends because you thought it was good advice. And then there are a plethora of golf coaches out there that say that this is a complete myth. And I think that may be, that might be miscategorizing it. It may not be a myth. I think maybe it's just phrased incorrectly, or maybe it's a little bit misleading, something to that effect. I'll get into it, I'll explain. As you saw in the title, there's no surprises. The thumbnail, the title, it all gave it away. But what I'm talking about today is keep your head down. There is not a golfer on the planet that has not either A, been given this tip, or B, they have given this tip, or C, they read this tip, saw it in a video, whatever, and they've tried it. Everybody knows about this tip. It is probably the most quintessential, iconic piece of golf instruction that there ever was. And it's taken on a lot of different forms, right? So you've got your guys that are just straightforward. They're gonna give it to you. Hey, keep your head down. And then there's this other rendition of it that's, hey, keep your eye on the ball. Watch the ball until it's gone. Watch the ball leave. And then, of course, you've got your smart-ass friends who'll come out and say, hey, you just keep watch on the ball. I'll tell you where it goes. It comes in many different shapes and forms, and it comes from all corners of the globe. But in recent years, there's been a lot of instructors talking about how keep your head down is one of the worst pieces of golf instruction that was ever created, ever devised, and that it's done far more harm than good. And there are a lot of examples of really great pros like Annika Sorenstam and David Duval. A lot of these top level players, their heads are already turned. They're already looking down the target line, either ahead of the golf ball or following the golf ball before they actually make impact. So the whole keep your eye on the ball thing, really, it's not 100% necessary ingredient for everybody. I'm one of those. Something that I've always done just instinctively is that I've never watched the ball leave. So right away, I'm sitting here going, hey man, I'm just like Ben Hogan and David Duval and Annika Sorenstam. I'm one of the greats. Well, I haven't reached their level yet. I've never sat there and looked at the ball, and anytime I've tried to do that, it always ended in disaster. And a lot of the golf coaches now that are starting to bust this myth about keeping your head down, they're saying the exact same thing, that it just doesn't work. Now, I'm good friends with a coach out in California. His name's Ron Del Barrio. You'll have to go check him out. He's actually got a YouTube channel called RDB Golf Tips. He's got an Instagram page by the same name, RDB Golf Tips. He posts things on there all the time. Ron has been teaching for years, literally decades, to turn your head. As soon as you get to the top of the backswing, his head is starting to turn. And you can watch him on his videos and on Instagram. You can see him in slow motion. He gets to the top of his backswing, and then his head starts to turn immediately. And he is a high-level professional coach, player. It's phenomenal what he's able to do, and he works wonders with so many people. But he really believes in turning that head, and his saying is that turn the head and the body follows. Now, the reason that I want to address this and the angle that I want to take on it is that I don't know that it's necessarily a myth. I think it's just been mislabeled. I think that the whole keeping your head down thing, what it's actually done and how it helped people, was that it helped in a different way, and it actually had nothing to do with the head. I think it actually had to do with the spine. Now, of course, the head sits on top of the spine. And recently, this is why I wanted to make this video, because recently, this has helped me tremendously with my consistency, with my strikes, with my distance, with maintaining the correct angles, all of these things that you're supposed to do in the swing. And I want to kind of get into why I think this is not necessarily a bad tip. I think it's just presented in the wrong way. Now, when I set up over the ball, I take a stance. I get my ball position. You know, I take my personal stance. Your stance may be different, but when I set up to the golf ball, what I'm doing is establishing, number one, where my feet are going to be placed Number 2, how much my knees are going to be bent. Number 3, my spine angle. You may be squatting like this and have a really vertical spine. You may be bending over from the hips and having a more horizontal spine. Start out with a spine angle like this, and then you maintain it this way, and your head has kind of stayed where it is. Then a lot of people tend to quit. I see this a lot in people that I play with. I've done it myself. I've been chronic with this. But when you take the club away, your spine and your head, maybe they're in pretty much the same position that they were, but then as they start to swing, they stand up, and not even talking about early extension where you get your hips going out. I'm just talking about standing up and changing your spine angle up out of it, and it leads to tops, it can lead to fats. Basically, when you stand up and you lose the spine angle, what I have found in my dealings with this is that these angles that you're trying to keep when you're coming into impact, if you stand up and lose your spine angle, in order to get to the ball, you have to throw those angles away early. And that is part of the cause for the flip. That's part of the cause for losing that lag angle that everybody talks about. It's part of why your face comes in and it's not squared to the target anymore. It's why you're losing all of your power and your consistency. So the way that I discovered that I was coming out of my spine angle so much was with driver. I would set up to a driver, I would have the ball teed up, I would have a nice little setup, I felt like I would take it away okay, and then when I went to go after it, I would actually come down and stand up. See how my spine stood up and I don't have that same angle. Now, that could be construed as lifting your head. But look, if I'm here and I've got this spine angle set, if I lift my head, my spine hasn't moved. So you can lift your head and you can turn. You can turn your head. See, even if I get right here like this, look, I'll bend over a little bit. Look, I can turn my head. My spine angle hasn't changed. So it's got nothing to do with the head. It's maintaining the same spine angle. Now, here's another thing. In my dealings with the Shawn Clement Wisdom in Golf swing, there is this heave up to the top and then a coming back down, a squat motion almost, where you're using the legs and you're engaging the kinetic chain with the legs in order to come back down from being up here and then throwing the club at the target. Now, where I ran into problems with this was that instead of keeping that spine angle and heaving it up and then throwing through, I was standing up and then coming back down and then standing up on the other side. So I was losing my spine angle. And it doesn't matter if I come up or down as long as this angle, the angle of my spine, stays relatively in the same place. And you can even move your spine angle around if you want to, but it's not going to be the most efficient thing. It's not going to be the most consistent unless you make some other forms of compensation. And those compensations, many times for me, was early extension and a flip motion. I had to get rid of my angles because how can you maintain this arm bend and this loaded position until the very last second if I stand up? The club's too far from the ball. I've got to let my arms go. I've got to let my arms go from here to get out to the golf ball. At that point, I have zero power. I have zero consistency. I've got to change where my ball position is in order to hit the ball before I hit the ground. All of those things are just brutal. They're devastating. They just kill your golf game. So where people tell you to keep your head down, what they really mean is don't stand up out of the shot. Stay with the shot. Stay down and through. Keep the head down. I think they're talking about the wrong body part. What they should actually be saying is keep the bend in your spine pretty close to where it was when you started. And a lot of that, I think, would cause inconsistencies. It would cause you over the top. It cause you to flip at it, early extend. All of these issues can be solved just by keeping your spine down. Guys, try this out. You don't have to make any changes to your swing. You don't have to swing harder. You don't have to swing faster. Try not to stand up out of the shot. Try and keep your spine angle. Make a nice, easy swing and just see what happens. Try it several times. Give it a chance. See what it can do for you and leave me some comments down below. Let me know. Did it help? See you guys in the next video.